Hello everyone, my name is Debbie. In this video, I will show you how to modify a text to provide students with more examples of sensory words. I will also go over how to create interactive slides with movable pieces that include visual supports. This way, students will be able to complete a portion of this lesson asynchronously.
In order to provide students with more examples of sensory words from a text that they are familiar with, I decided to modify the text, "Last Stop on Market Street." I changed the text slightly in order to include at least one sensory word for each of the 5 senses. So if we take a look at this page, the original sentence says, "That's a mighty fine perfume you're wearing today, ma'am." So I modify this slightly to change fine into sweet. That way, I can provide the word sweet as an example of a sensory word. Not only that, sweet is a versatile sensory word, so it's definitely important to include this word. This way, students know that you can use sweet to describe how something smells, as well as how something tastes. Another modification I made was on this page. There weren't any sensory words in this text that focused on how something tastes. So I decided to include it on this page since they are at a soup kitchen. I added a sentence here which says, "This food is very tasty," said one of the people in line. This way, students will have an example of a sensory word about how something tastes. Once again, I made some slight modifications to the text in order to include sensory words for each of the 5 senses. I also modified the we do activity. Rather than have students come up with their own sensory words, I decided to have students sort the sensory words first. This way, students will get additional examples of sensory words for each of the 5 senses. For this portion of the lesson, students will be able to interact with the Google Slides. To make the Google Slides interactive, the first thing I did was create this table. As you can see, there will be a word bank here, and then there will be 5 columns, one for each of the 5 senses, with an image to support students in remembering what each sense is. Now that we have the table created, we are going to download this slide as an image file. We will click File, Download, and JPEG. The reason we are downloading the slide as an image file is so that we can use it as a background image. This way, students won't be able to edit the table or move any of the images around accidentally. So the next thing we do is simply insert a new blank slide. Then you will click Background. Next, click Choose Image and simply upload the image file that you just downloaded. So we'll see it here, and then click Done, and you will see that this is now the background, so we cannot make any edits to it, which is great. We only want students to move certain pieces. So now we will create the movable tiles with the sensory words. The first thing you will do is insert a text box like this and simply type the word. I'm going to type the word sour. In the activity, the word they used was bitter. However, most students aren't too familiar with that taste, so I decided to change it to sour. You will want to add a border as well as a background color so that students are able to distinguish it from the rest of the word bank. You can definitely make it bigger, but you want to make sure it fits into these columns here. So you don't want to make it too big, otherwise it will not fit in the column. Now, we will add an image to support students in understanding and remembering what the word sour means. So I'm just going to use an image of a lemon here because students are familiar with lemons, and simply add the lemon next to it. A problem that we might have is that students will be able to move the lemon image as well as change the letters. In order to prevent that from happening, we need to make this tile an image file. One way to do this is to simply take a screenshot of that tile and make it into an image file. So I will do that now. So now I have the word sour with the lemon image next to it, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG file, sour. I can insert it as an image. I'm going to click Insert Image, Upload from Computer, and I'm going to open up that file here, sour. And now you can see I have an exact replica of what I already created, but this time students won't be able to change it. They won't be able to move the lemon, and they cannot type into that box. And you can make it a little bit bigger, and then students will be able to sort it into the correct column without making any changes accidentally. So now I'm going to leave this in the word bank and work on some other words. So for example, I might use the word buzz. For this one, I'm going to use an image of a bee. So here's the image of the bee, and I'm just going to make it smaller so it can fit inside this box. And once I have it in the box, I will do what I just did before. Take a little screenshot of just the image, then you save it as the word buzz. And once again, you will insert, image, upload from computer, and this time we will click on the word buzz. And again, I can just delete these and use this as a template for the next word. So I will be repeating this process for the rest of the words. Now I have all of my movable tiles down here. I have 2 words per sentence. This is a great place to modify depending on what your students need. Perhaps 10 words could be too overwhelming for your students, so you might want to just use 1 word per sentence, or you might want more practice for your students, so you can add more words here. I also included this editable slide in the slide deck. This way, you can change the sensory words or add more sensory words. This lesson is intended to be taught synchronously. So in this portion of the lesson, students will sort the sensory words into the 5 columns with your guidance. If your students are familiar with how to use Google Slides in this way, you can share the link with them, and this way they can move the tiles themselves. However, if your students are not familiar with how to use Google Slides in this way, simply share your screen and have students dictate where to move the tiles. For example, they might tell you the word stinky goes under smell. This would be a great time in the lesson to ask students for examples of things that fit each of the sensory words. For example, if you ask them, what are some things that could be stinky? They might say garbage. If you would like students to do this asynchronously, I would only leave the slide that explains what sensory words are and this slide. That way, there isn't too much for them to look at or get distracted by.
Let's review what I went over in this video. I showed you how to modify a familiar text in order to provide students with more examples of sensory words. This way, they can see sensory words in all 5 senses. I also went over how to make Google Slides interactive and provide students with visual supports. This way, students can complete the activity asynchronously, or they can interact with the Google Slides in real time during the lesson. Throughout the video, I provided you with different options for modifications. This is just part 1 of a 2-part video. In the next video, I will talk about the next and last parts of the lesson. I will also show you how to use Jamboard for these lessons. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.